Hey, Rockheads. This is Music to Code by Track 12. Check this out. Oh yeah, just what you need to get in the zone when you write code. And get this, we just added a site license. Download it once, share it with everybody in your office. Check it out at musictocodeby.net.
.NET Rocks, episode 1312, with guests David Fowler and Damian Edwards. Recorded Wednesday, June 8th, 2016.
Hey, guess what? It's .NET Rocks. We're in Oslo, and I can almost talk.
Almost talk, but I see why. You have your medicine with you.
I have my medicine. It has the mark of the maker on it.
Yes, it does. And that mark of the maker will soothe your voice.
Yes, it does. I think I'll take a little sip right now.
Right, there you go.
Now my voice is much better.
It's even better. Yeah,
it is.
That's amazing. Drink more.
We are in the Fishbowl. This is the first of our shows recorded from NDC 2016.
Yep, and we're coming out in sequence for this show. It gets weird after this. Sorry,
it's weird
about
after this, but Damian's here, David's here. We're going to have a good time with them. But first, it's Better Know Framework.
Awesome. And the boys are bobbing their heads to the music they cannot hear.
It's really good. Should take a picture of this.
It's good. All right, buddy, what do you got?
All right. Well, my friend and fellow app vNext developer Robert Freiberg sent in this one. This is an in-memory database for .NET, and of course you can go to 1312.pwop.me or just origodb.com. That's origodb.com. It's an in-memory database for .NET. So this is what they say. In-memory technology is not just the latest buzz. It's spreading fast and is predicted to be highly disruptive. The first version of Oracle ran on a PDP-11 with 128K of RAM. The amount of available RAM is constantly increasing, with commodity servers approaching the 1 terabyte mark, enough to hold 99% of all OLTP databases in memory. The traditional RDBMS architecture and the relational model along with it are now obsolete. Maybe not. But Robert seems to get a lot of use out of it, and he uses it in
because SQL Server, if you give it a terabyte of RAM,
it's all in RAM.
It ends up caching everything anyway, exactly. Right? But I'm with you.
Yeah,
it's a little lighter weight. It's there's not as much ceremony. Like there's some merits to trying to go to closer up stores for your apps. But that's the whole NoSQL thing.
And there's a few features they highlight on their website. Bring your own data model. So OrigoDB data models, commands, and queries are written in C# with runtime access to the entire mono.NET class library. Create your own domain-specific model or go with a generic one. That's interesting. Not just .NET. The OrigoDB server REST API uses the widely supported JSON format, allowing access from virtually any platform. Use the native .NET client for optimal performance and the full set of features. Both interfaces support ad hoc queries using the powerful link syntax. So you can sort of see how, that could be attractive.
That has an appeal.
And I see Damian and David kind of going,
I had that idea. I swear.
You did?
You think you'd write some code. I don't know what you do with your time.
Everyone told me that it was a bad idea.
Just do this.
And this guy's got it before me.
Oh, my God.
Story of my life, actually. All right. So
there's power to actually writing the code.
So that's what I got, Richard. Who's talking to us?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1216, the one we did with one Damian Edwards, where we talked about ASP.NET vNext, or it was still called that.
Right.
And where that was going, now it's November of 2015, just not that long ago, really. And Stuart Robertson said this: the steps that Microsoft are taking to go cross-platform and open source are remarkable. I find it really cool that I can now, for example, set up an ASP.NET project on my Windows laptop and then open, work on, build, and run the same project on my Linux workstation without doing anything more complex than running a DNU restore command to fetch the package dependencies.
On my Linux workstation?
On his Linux workstation.
My Linux workstation.
That's that one guy.
Yeah. So a bit of a sadist, but okay.
Okay.
What's more, with Visual Studio Code, my dev environment can be exactly mirrored across both platforms too. You know what? I like Visual Studio Code, but it is not an exact mirror of Visual Studio. So a little hyperbole there, Stuart, but I'm with you.
Yeah,
it is cool. I like code for just getting in and editing a file, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to open a solution. I just want to edit a file. I'm nowhere near fashionable enough to own a Mac. Yeah, and you just don't want to waste that much money either. You run Linux. I mean, we know who you are, Stuart.
I love this commentary. It's awesome.
But I trust that if I were, it would just build and run there just the same.
Yeah.
It truly is a brave new world. Yes, it is. And a couple of the guys responsible for that brave new world are sitting across from us.
Right.
So, Stuart, thank you so much for your comment. A .NET Rocks mug is on its way to you. And if you'd like a .NET Rocks mug, write a comment on the website at .NETRocks.com via any of our social media. We publish every show to Google Plus and Facebook. And if you comment there, we read it on the show, we'll send you a mug.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We cache them in memory.
Nice.
All right. Let me officially introduce Damian and David. First, Damian Edwards. He's Aussie at ASP.NET Guy on Twitter. At Microsoft USA, though not speaking for Microsoft all the time anyway. Lover of craft beer, espresso, fine watches, the Seahawks, and cricket.
That sounds like me.
But what's your real title, though?
Oh, you're going to make me say my
Come
real
on,
title.
what's your title?
Principal Program Manager.
Oh, that's awesome. I just wanted to hear you say it.
Say manager again.
Manager. From the Department of Redundancy Department. David Fowler is a software developer at Microsoft on the ASP.NET team, also the creator of SignalR. Dude, fist pump for that.
Boom.
You're awesome. And ASP.NET core architect. Welcome, guys.
Hey,
These guys were both in on SignalR, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You both were. Thank you for that. It's awesome. And by the way, I got a HoloLens, and I've been working on the HoloLens. Yeah, actually, there's one right there.
No! It's in the box.
Absolutely, it's in the box.
That's
for Richard.
the
Richard
box.
got one. I got one. Richard just got his about a half an hour ago.
Oh, wow.
that's amazing.
It's still in the box.
But anyway, so you
Wait,
know,
is this all real right now, or
Totally.
do we all have HoloLenses on?
I don't,
That would be
Hold on.
interesting.
for those who didn't see, David just did the pinch gesture.
Isn't that the old kids in the hall, I'm crushing your head
I'm
gesture?
crushing, I
Is that what
crush
that is?
you. So the HoloLens, has a bit of it's kind of hard to get networking going with that. And there's a Holo Toolkit, which will be another Better Know framework at another time, that has a networking class. But I was hoping SignalR would work on it, but it requires .NET 3.5, I think.
There's a SignalR client.
So there's SignalR for
portable.
2.0.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
it is a PCL. And so
Yes.
it should work. What you need is for it to work in UWP.
UWP, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the SignalR 2.2.1
That we
release
never released.
haven't released yet, that we have sitting there waiting until we can get time to verify it.
All right, you and me, we're
Supports
going to talk
UWP.
after. We'll get this going.
Well, this is
'Cause
what's
I
fun
think-
about being at conferences.
Because I think SignalR is a great solution for HoloLens for connectivity.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought.
All right. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about what the heck are you guys doing over there at Microsoft on this ASP.NET and .NET framework. What did you do to us?
What do we do?
Because you packed the house last session.
We
Yeah, it
just
was
got
full.
off stage,
Yeah.
right? And it was probably the biggest crowd we've ever had.
Awesome.
That I've ever had at NDC.
It was like World War Z, where you had the zombies like climbing
climbing on top of each other.
Everyone's trying to get
or like
into
that
the-
park a few blocks away.
the sculpture
sculpture
park,
park,
yeah,
stacked up.
where
Yes.
there's people
So there were
on.
piles of Norwegians in your
Yes.
session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it
were
was
they
wonderful.
carrying torches or were they genuinely cool?
No, they were genuinely cool.
Great.
No, it was good. I think the reality is that we're seeing some of the side effects of being more open.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times I can say honestly that there's been times like this internally at Microsoft before
Yeah.
where we've had to make course corrections or adjustments before
Right.
the product is finalized. And only a few times have they leaked into the public.
Yeah.
So the last big one I remember was Visual Studio 2010, where we did a beta, and I think the RC had been announced, and then they
It was
paused,
just too slow.
and it was just
Yeah.
too slow.
It was. I remember
And-
Soma making the call.
Yep.
And I was doing content planning for the 2010 launch in
Yep.
Vegas, and suddenly it's like you need to bump out a month.
Yep.
We're like, we got to do what?
Yep. And that was big inside Microsoft as well. Obviously,
Oh,
that was
yeah,
a
it was
really big
huge.
impact.
But you had a good band.
I had very good band. I had your band.
That's
That
right.
was awesome. That was a heck of a show.
So that's the last big one I remember that was public. But now that we're all open source, sometimes things change. Sometimes and they're for different reasons.
Yeah.
Some things changed this time that were technical. Some of them were probably fair to say somewhat political, and some of them were just business. Some of them, we acquired a whole company that's famous for doing stuff in .NET. Like
So
we acquired Xamarin. And
So the
Right.
real question is, if you hadn't done this,
yes.
what would the fallout have been down the road?
Now I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
But what was I'm like, let's reverse it then.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do, and what kind of things would that have prevented?
So we built DNX, right?
Right.
And DNX was, in a lot of ways, I think it's fair to say, very focused on our scenarios. It was focused on the scenarios that the web team cared about.
Server.
Server scenarios, ASP.NET.
Yep.
And DNX is an acronym for one of these things.
It was an acronym for .NET something.
execution environment.
Yep.
Execution,
We made it up.
cross-platform. X doesn't mean anything, so
I
we chose
see.
X.
I see.
And we said, you can interpret what X means. It's cross-platform. It's execution
.NET,
environment.
whatever.
Yeah.
I think we
.NET
officially said
stars.
execution
That's when you
environment.
know it's a real acronym, when it really doesn't actually match up to the words
Exactly.
and make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Then you know you've nailed it.
And so, we basically built an alternate .NET app model
Right.
that didn't come, from the quote-unquote .NET group.
Oh, got it.
At that point, the ASP.NET team was still in Azure. We work incredibly closely with the .NET team.
Yeah.
But we built a thing that that was suiting the requirements that we had been, that had been blessed, and going cross-platform. We're going to run
Right.
Mac and Linux and yada yada yada. To do that, it has to kind of basically be a console app. So
Yeah.
ASP.NET apps are now console apps,
Yep. Yeah.
which they weren't previously. And at that point, if you squint, it got confusing. Like in File New in RC1, you would go into Visual Studio and it would said ASP.NET console application.
That was the best. That was the
And
best.
people were kind of like,
what the?
Wait a minute. So
And
it seemed a little fragmented.
it seemed
then.
a little fragmented, and like we'd fragmented ourselves.
And that's not the first time you guys did that, too. You think about what happened to XAML with Silverlight and
Yes.
WinPhone 8. It's like the fragmentation of XAML got really hairy for a while there.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and again, if you were to look back at the reasons why that happened,
Yeah.
I'm sure we're not always proud of, like a crystal ball, or we don't have a crystal ball, so we
Yeah,
can't see
yeah.
in the future. You look back in retrospect and you go, well, given our time again, knowing what we know now, maybe
Yeah.
we've done some things
So
differently.
basically, you guys had to sync with the .NET team. Is that what happened?
Yeah, basically at that point we took a step back.
We
At
met.
that- and it was late. So it was already after RC1 had
RC.
been scheduled to ship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
had a
totally
meeting,
honest, this
yeah.
happened in October. I think the decision was made in late October
Yeah.
after the MVP summit. And we were shipping at the Connect event in
Yep.
New York in
Yeah.
early November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, we can't not ship RC1 because we had customers who are ready to run on a
Sure.
go live supported version of ASP.NET Core.
Right.
So we don't want to let those customers down, but we had to make this pivot. And so we were left in this unfortunate situation where we had to put an RC out that was supported, and it still is. Well, no, RC2 is out now, so it's not.
All right.
But while also simultaneously announcing that there were going to be some changes.
Big changes.
Some
And-
changes.
And let me tell you, the betas of ASP.NET 5 weren't a cakewalk either, my friends.
They were awesome. They were awesome.
They were
What do you mean?
betas.
They were betas, yeah.
They were
Yeah.
betas.
They were
right?
alphas.
We did eight
They
betas.
were alphas.
Yeah.
They
were
were
alphas.
alphas.
So I-
Because we built Humanitarian Toolbox already, going back to beta. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think
Would
beta
have rose by any
4.
other name.
All I know is we're all still alive, but there are a few bodies behind us.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I've used other frameworks beta to beta where thing breaks, and then you expect that. I mean,
Right.
yes,
But then when it happens at an RC2, you're like,
that's annoying, and I agree.
There's
Totally annoying.
breaks and there's pivots.
Yes.
We pivoted
We pivoted.
3 or 4 times. I think that's the fatigue people see.
But I think the thing we really need to remember here is that you did it for a good reason, and
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and now the result of that is a unified
.NET.
.NET
And,
platform.
and let's be clear, we haven't even released 1.0 yet. So
Right.
like all this has happened before we did 1.0, which is
Yep.
much better
Than after.
than the alternative, which happens to a lot of other frameworks. Angular 1 and
Angular
Angular 2
1.
are completely different.
ASP1
ASP.NET.
and ASP1 and 1.1.
1.1.
So that's actually interesting. to
That
bring
was
up.
tough,
ASP.NET
yeah.
1.1 and ASP.NET 2.
Yeah.
ASP.NET 2 was the largest ASP.NET release we have
Huge.
ever done. Right?
Yeah.
And
Well, the .NET framework moved a lot in
lot
that
as
rev
well.
too.
And what did we
Yeah.
do? we didn't upgrade all the controls that were in ASP.NET 1.1. We created new controls.
Yes.
So if you had a grid, it was a data grid first in 1.1, and you did data source dot equals blah and data source and then data bind on your control. And then we came and said, two-way data binding in ASP.NET 2. Rewrite every single page.
Grid view.
If you
Because there were
wanna-
new controls. Grid view, list view.
But it was backward compatible, though. I mean,
It was backwards compatible.
Yeah.
It
Still
was.
works, yeah.
But
You don't
that
have to.
pivot happened internally to the .NET framework, but it
Yeah.
still happened. And we did it with WinForms and WPF.
Yep.
Exactly the same thing. It's just that it happened inside the .NET framework.
I had some customers that persist those 1.1 apps for a long
Some
time.
people-
For good reason.
Yeah.
Some people don't seem to care that the old thing is still there. Because
Yeah.
we'll say ASP.NET Core is a brand new thing. Don't port your stuff.
Yeah. Right.
If you're, have a big app, don't port it.
Yep.
People will go, but it's new and shiny. I
5 is
have-
better than 4.
Yeah,
Five.
I have to port right now. I have to port. And then,
like-
We renamed it from
It's like-
5 to 1 because of that reason.
yeah, and we went, we're not ready yet. Not for
It's
everything,
like
but
putting
some
a
things.
chocolate cake in front of a diabetic
Yeah.
and saying, "Don't eat that." Okay, but
Yep.
I want you to just sit there and look at it.
Is-
and we're
is
going to
it
publish a
pretty?
recipe, and we're going to show you how to make it and how to eat it right. But don't eat it, okay? Just don't.
I promise you don't want it yet. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it has happened before, and I think this time, as I think you remarked before the show, people are excited. Like this is a
Yeah.
whole new era of .NET,
Well,
and
yeah.
people are rightfully have a lot of energy about it, and so people get disappointed when things don't work out
Yeah.
the way they
Yeah. It's the
wanted.
open
in the
era.
time. It's an open era,
They-
right?
and I would rather people be happy,
Yes,
and then if they're not happy, I'd rather they be angry than indifferent.
and that's
So,
actually
the
that's
fact that there's so much passion around it.
Yes.
The fact that Twitter got so mean for a while there.
Twitter's good at that.
Twitter is good at that. It can go
So
real
the weird
nasty.
part about Twitter is we now have random people on Twitter, Facebook, Slack, whatever else is there, Snapchat, whatever,
Get
and trying to convey the company's message to say we're trying to do X, and we're trying to unify our messages via the blog, and
Right.
people get desperate pieces of information from different people.
Yep.
So his boss is trying to get us to kind of say, not one thing, but to keep in line with the actual message from
Right.
the company. And it's hard because people are honest on Twitter.
Yes.
People say stuff like, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that," and then people are going, "What do you mean?" And then they screenshot Twitter and say, "David said X, so it's happening." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to say that." And it didn't come out right.
If you watch the stand-ups, there's nothing you have said in Twitter
I know,
you
yeah.
have not said in the stand-up.
And not
That's what
everyone
he said
watches the
too.
stand-ups.
That's what he said
And
too.
so,
Yeah.
like the stand-ups, we get a couple hundred, 300 live usually
Right.
watching, and then we get maybe 5,000-6,000 watch within that
they're
week.
up forever.
And they're up forever.
They're up forever, yeah.
And I think the most ones maybe got 10,000 views.
Yeah.
But I think we forget, .NET has millions
Yeah.
of customers.
Oh, yeah.
Millions.
Yes.
And those are, we have to think of all of them.
Yeah.
When we do these things. And sometimes, those customers aren't on Twitter. They're not watching the stand-ups. They're not even reading the blogs a lot of the time. And so we have to make decisions based on all of those things. And sometimes things change. And
Right.
we ran downhill full speed for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then we tripped in November a little bit. That's probably fair to say.
I want to
And
say
we're
something
now-
a bit controversial, but it's not
Don't.
controversial. It's not controversial. It's kind of controversial. It's not. Open source is open source, right?
Yeah.
But we do own the product. So I've seen
You
comments.
still ship a version of
Exactly.
this product, without a doubt.
We have customers, pay us money for support and stuff.
Yep.
And it is open source, but we don't make decisions based on a few people on GitHub. We
Right.
have to think of everything.
And I think
Right.
that's the big issue with
Yeah.
this open model is it's very easy to emphasize the squeaky wheels.
Yeah.
Squeaky wheels are right there. They're even offering you code.
Yeah. So people are input, but they don't get to decide all the time. We do take feedback.
There's,
Right?
And to be
there
fair-
is still a business here.
To be
Yeah.
fair, I think as a slight rebuttal to that as
Yeah.
well, because I've heard this feedback, is that I think a lot of people appreciate that and understand that, but perhaps don't see us publishing
Saying
the
things.
outcome
Yeah.
and the thought processes that lead us to those decisions.
Yeah.
And so we've had criticisms of too many closed door
decisions.
Yeah.
And we're guilty of that. And
Yeah, but I don't think you actually closed the door.
No.
I have definitely watched some of the stand-up where it's like, you two had a conversation at the water cooler today, didn't you?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you're just playing off each other,
Yes.
going through something,
Yes.
right? But that's normal work life. I
Yes.
mean, that's reality. We don't go into a meeting having none of us ever spoken to each other.
Right,
That's just
exactly.
that's not reality.
Right.
I'd like to move on. Before we talk about Kestrel, though, the last time we talked to you, Damian, I think was at the MVP Summit, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
November.
think so. Yep. On
And you
campus.
were talking about perf.
Yes.
And how you guys had a lab, and
Yep.
then we talked to Hunter about it too.
Yes.
And so back then you were saying, there's this Java thing that, and I can't remember
Netty.
what it was.
Netty, yeah.
That is kicking our butts in
Yep.
terms of performance, and we really got to get. So how did that turn out?
It's a work in progress. And so back then, I think when I last spoke to you, we were just I think we were at 700,000 requests per second on our rig. And then within a couple of weeks of that, we hit 1 million, which
Yep.
was kind of that was what we were targeting as our first goal. Netty was doing 2.3 million or something ridiculous else over there. We have a new perf lab, which is run by the actual perf team, not just a bunch of hoo-has in the office. Not just
us.
Damian,
And you-
not just me.
And you know who you are, who was.
That's me. I'm the hoo-ha. So we actually have the real perf people work with Big Iron, as we
Yeah.
call it, right?
Yeah.
48 core servers with ridiculous, dual 10
Great.
gigabit
Tech and
cards.
power hardware.
Tech and power hardware, as we call it, right?
Great.
Equivalent. And that we've just broken 5 million requests per second.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So that's
Come
pretty
on.
cool.
It's fast.
And that's our goal for RTM. So we're shipping RTM into this month. Our goal is to basically hit 5 million requests per second for the plain text benchmark on Tech and Power on their hardware by the end of this month. Looks like we're going to hit that okay. Netty on our hardware does 8 million.
Oh,
Okay, so that's fine.
Oh.
We didn't expect to hit Netty in version 1.
that's different. Never mind.
Yeah, so we didn't. As I said, work in progress. We're not going to finish, right? I mean, Netty has been around for a while, and we knew we weren't going to. We knew we weren't going to catch Netty in 1.0. They're a fantastic inspiration, and they're a fantastic framework. So we're very happy that we're going to hit that number for RTM, and we'll
Yeah.
continue to work very hard. We're going
Yeah.
to talk later today.
Yeah.
Where we're going to go into the crazy things we have to do to make a server that fast in .NET, which is kind
Right.
of cool.
Don't use .NET.
Kind of an unreasonable thing too, right? I mean, I've definitely played the perf game long enough to know when all we're doing is competing for benchmarks, goofy things start to happen.
It's great. There's some really cool stuff.
He says great. I cringe.
Why?
Because you see pull requests that come in and you're like, oh my God, I can't read this code.
What are we doing?
What if this guy dies?
What
What if this guy dies and we have no comments and there's we don't know what this thing is?
make them put comments on it.
That'll help.
Make them do a PowerPoint deck for every
I,
commit.
I like that whole I'm making developers do things thing. That's a great idea.
All right, we have about 7 minutes before the break, so let's give just a quick elevator pitch about what Kestrel is and why it exists.
So, as part of taking ASP.NET Core cross-platform, we had to build a web server because ASP.NET traditionally is run on IIS, and IIS is part of Windows.
But
right?
what about the one that runs on Owen?
So we never built a server that runs on Owen.
No, but you built an ASP.NET that runs on Owen.
No, we built an ASP.NET that runs on Owen, but Owen isn't a server. Owen is a
Right.
contract that allows any server, but we never actually built
A server.
a production server
Oh, okay.
for Owen. So we contributed to the Owen effort. We built Katana that sort of played in that arena, and we had frameworks like Signaler and Web API and Katana that would allow you to run things on top of an Owen compliant server. And then we
Okay.
built an Owen host for system web.
And
So you could
for
run Owen on IIS.
HTTP sys too.
And HTTP sys directly.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
But that's all Windows.
Okay.
And so there was one called Kayak,
Kayak, yeah.
which Lou wrote. Which,
no, that was
oh, wasn't it?
Firefly.
Oh, Firefly. There was one called Kayak, which someone else wrote.
More insects, animals.
And then Firefly was what Lou wrote.
Yep.
And that was a cross-platform .NET server, but it wasn't a particularly good one. And it was never intended to be production ready or anything. It was an experiment. So then when we did ASP.NET Core and we decided to go cross-plat, in Beta 8, we decided we had to do a proper cross-platform production server.
Yeah.
So thus Kestrel was born.
Okay.
We used libuv, which is a native component that Node.js uses to do networking and file I/O and asynchronous management and concurrency and stuff. So we use that. So we get the nice concurrent and asynchronous I/O on all platforms, and then we basically p-invoke into it from C#. So Kestrel is written in C#, but all the networking is managed by libuv. And we call into libuv to say, please, yes, accept that socket, give it to me now, write bytes, read bytes, blah, blah, blah.
It's actually a very small piece of code, but it does a lot of stuff.
libuv? Yeah.
No, our code. Kestrel is very small. It parses
True.
HTTP, and does one thing, but it's very tight code.
Yeah.
This kind of
But it's reliant on this other thing to do the sort of the front end, the answering the door
The
kind
bytes.
of thing.
Do the sockets and the bytes.
the byte pump.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's on GitHub.
It is
Yeah.
all on GitHub.
Yep.
And it's part of the
Part of ASP.NET Core.
ASP.NET.
ASP.NET Core.
Yep.
And so the goal is that you have this version of .NET that runs on everything, and it includes a web server.
It includes a web server, assuming that you can run libuv on that. Now, because Node has been ported to run almost everywhere,
Right.
we get that benefit of
Yeah.
that. Well, they've made libuv run on Raspberry Pis and on
Sure,
even
right.
smaller Arduinos and God knows what else. And so if there's a build of libuv, then it's just up to us to do
Right.
the work to make it to .NET work there. So
And I see David's contributions to Kestrel, but I don't see any from you.
I have contributed.
Oh, there it is, way down
Date
there.
value, yeah, the header.
Value,
Three whole-
date header value manager.
Nice.
I
Three whole
wrote,
commits.
and it's been completely rewritten a few times since then.
Yeah.
But the basic architecture is the same.
okay.
Because guess what? Writing out dates from .NET isn't fast when you're trying to do 5 million requests per second.
Yeah, funny.
And the HTTP spec requires that you print a date header when
Right.
you
That is
reply.
accurate enough.
That is accurate enough to do things like cache invalidation.
Right.
But if you just try and format a date every microsecond, you will get burned.
How do you know this?
Oh, we found out. Let me tell you how I know this.
Oh, the stories, the profilers, the profiles. Man.
Yeah.
Well, but it's kind of luxurious to tackle an HTTP pump from scratch again.
So building a trivial HTTP server is very easy.
Very easy.
Building a good HTTP server is one of the hardest things you can
It's
do.
really interesting, isn't it?
Really difficult to build a
Good,
really good one.
secure,
Yeah.
fast,
Stable.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like never write another SSL library ever again, right? Like it's one of those things.
And we
Yes.
haven't done that, to be clear.
Yeah,
we haven't
good.
done
We don't want any part
No
of
Good
that.
on
custom
ya.
crypto.
No crypto.
Custom
No
crypto
custom
bad.
crypto,
No. We let the experts do that.
But yeah, actually getting it right. There's so much testing. There's so many
Oh
details.
my gosh.
And then then there's the spec, and then there's what actual browsers do.
Yes, what
and
the
what different
expected.
clients do.
There's a difference between the spec behavior
Yes.
and the expected behavior.
We've had many discussions about should we just use this encoding or should we actually? Well, apps generally expect. What does IE5 do? What all those type of
yeah,
things. Right?
no.
It's fun. It's pretty fun.
Hey, Richard,
Yeah, buddy.
guess what time it is?
It must be that happy time again.
You got it. It's time to announce the performance of my last mid-show joke. It was 5 million laughs per second.
Wow.
Oh, wait, that was RC2. Yeah, we're going to recall that. So reset the laughs to
Uh-oh.
0.
They pivoted on that joke.
It's actually time to give away a Telerik DevCraft collection to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But first, yes, cross-platform mobile development has been democratized for .NET developers now that Xamarin and all of its tooling is free for Visual Studio developers. But hold on, before you get started on your dream cross-plat app, you don't want to reinvent the wheel with UI components. Enter Telerik UI for Xamarin. All the UI polish you need for your Xamarin apps out of the box for iOS, Android, and Xamarin Forms. We're talking complex graphs, charts, gauges, and loads of other UI elements, all ready for you to use from the comforts of C#. Grab a free trial of UI for Xamarin, or use all of Telerik DevCraft, the most complete .NET UI tool set for any app, web, desktop, or mobile. Get started today at telerik.com/Xamarin-UI or telerik.com/devcraft.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner is Anders Lundberg.
Congratulations, Anders.
Yeah.
Golf clap for you, sir.
Round of applause for you.
You got some clappers.
I got the clappers.
Yeah.
Here. These
That's
clappers
sweet.
are transatlantic clappers.
Yes, they get
Right
around.
there.
That's
Yes.
a good Scandinavian name, Lundberg.
Lundberg, yeah, absolutely. And Anders just won the Telerik DevCraft collection. That's a big pile of awesome from Telerik. And if you don't know what we're doing here, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But you have to sign up to win. We also like to ask our guests, Damian, if you had $5,000 to spend on technology, what would you buy?
Well, I just bought a new house, so
Yeah.
I'm settling in there.
So you got lots of money to spend on lots of things.
Oh, yeah.
Because houses are expensive.
House poor.
Yeah.
But I started dabbling with smart home stuff.
Okay.
So I got a Samsung Smart Things.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of entrance sensor things and a water leak sensor, and I got a Z-Wave door lock with a keypad, which is a bit of fun. And I'm going to put a garage door sensor on and stuff. It's okay. I'm having a bit of trouble. It's a 3-story house. It's pretty big, so I'm having a bit of trouble with range. And
Yep.
sensors will just kind of randomly drop out, and it'll work brilliantly 1 second, and then it'll just be able to connect. So I might have to get some repeaters. But I'm also really interested in the Ubiquity Networks gear. I think my little Netgear consumer thing's not going to cut it in my new house. So they're releasing consumer stuff in summer this year that they've announced.
And these are high-end Wi-Fi gear.
Yeah, so they're a recent company. They're doing gangbusters in commercial Wi-Fi gear. And now they're
setting up a real mesh in your house is a bit of overkill.
Well, they do make it very, very simple.
I'm with you. But a pair of WRT 1900 ACs.
No, I gave up on those. I have one sitting in a closet
big
at
one?
home. Yeah.
Yeah, the big one's got a lot of clout, man.
It does when it works. Mine just kept hanging.
Oh, take it back. You got a bad one.
I gave up. I lost patience.
You got another bad one.
Lost patience. And so sitting in my cupboard, $200 worth of router.
Yeah. Give it to a friend or give it to an enemy.
I think I'll wait for the new stuff to come out from them.
It's in the drawer of broken
So
dreams.
I bought a pair. I bought a pair of them, set them up, and then realized I only needed one to cover my house, which is a big house.
Yeah.
But when you get a good one,
you get a good one.
kick. But the custom firmware thing, like
I never did that.
DDWRT was awesome, and they've never built the same for that big router, which is a damn shame. Because I would turn that thing up so that I could log onto my Wi-Fi from like 4 blocks away.
Doesn't that violate the FCC rules? Or
But
something?
I'm a Canadian. I don't care about your FCC.
FCC, what is this thing?
How close are you to the border?
Close enough that you could see my Wi-Fi.
So back in the days of CB radio, which was
Jeez.
in the 80s and stuff, right? 70s and 80s. There was a thing called a linear amplifier that you could put on your base station that just cranked up the power, and it's totally illegal. And my friend, I won't name him, he still has this old tube linear amplifier, and its nickname is Grandpa. Let's turn on Grandpa. When he holds that thing down, like nobody for miles can hear anything except
Do like
him.
birds just drop out of the sky and stuff?
Yeah.
Burst into flames.
It just completely goes over everything.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Mr. Fowler, $5,000. What would you spend it on?
Maybe an Alexa. Is that like a couple $100?
Yeah, they're
The
like
Amazon thing?
$300, man.
Maybe I get one for every single
Room in the
cabinet,
house,
closet.
It doesn't do multi-room very well, apparently.
Maybe Google Home and Alexa.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Make them talk to each other.
Do they
There you go.
interrupt?
Did they argue with
I
each
don't
other?
know. Yeah. I bought a house too, so.
You don't want to buy a HoloLens? Because Richard's going to sell his, right?
If I could shop online, maybe, and put
don't
my
think
couch,
so.
and put it right
I'm
there.
really bullish about HoloLens, actually.
I'm totally with you. I really like the idea that at some point we will do a HoloLens.net Rocks where we're all wearing HoloLenses.
Absolutely.
Doing the holoportation.
Remote,
thing.
yeah.
And we'll publish the video.
And we'll
too.
publish the video
Yeah.
of it.
No,
Yeah.
I think
That'll
there's
be
big
fun.
opportunities in HoloLens. If it's not HoloLens, it'll be something else, but I think...
I think the visor is the only thing I've seen that could actually supplant the smartphone.
Yeah.
Because when smartphones were brand new, that 2006, 2007 time span, that was when you handed one to somebody and you just lost them. Like they just went away.
Yeah.
Like, all propriety went out the door. Like all of the social norms went out the door. I had this device and it has me. And HoloLens does that. You get one on someone and they're like,
Yeah,
and then they're gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're just gone, right? And people say, well, it's too dorky. It's like, look, the smartphone was too dorky too, and you didn't care.
was.
Headsets
yeah.
were dorky. Cell
Right?
phones were dorky.
All those
But
things
then-
were dorky.
but
Giant
then-
cell phones.
Then again, the applications for HoloLens aren't social applications. You're not going to walk down the street wearing them. You're not going to go to, maybe you'll go to HoloLens parties, but you're not going to be wearing them around the office. People are not going to be walking around in a daze going, whoa.
I think that it'll be a progression here, like most new tech. I think that I'm very bullish about the applications for collaborative
Me too.
work and for remote work
Yeah.
and for like a bunch of people standing around in education and engineering and design and those type of things. And then as the technology shrinks, and I think the big thing they did right, I'm just totally talking off the cuff, this is me, my
Yep.
opinions here. The thing they did right was the untethered part
Yeah.
of it. That was the real differentiator.
Yes.
And when that tech shrinks, which it inevitably will, and I can look at David wearing his glasses, and that is effectively a HoloLens.
Right.
Give it a generation or two.
But
Like, there's
didn't
no way
Google
it won't end
Glass
up that way.
have this and then they canned it.
So Google Glass had it, but it didn't have any of the spatial mapping,
Yeah.
spatial
It was-
audio. It
I
was
see.
just
It
a
was-
little lens. That's
Yeah,
all
it was
just.
and it was enough different that it hit the uncanny valley, and it wasn't compelling enough that you didn't care.
Right.
Right. So and that's sort of the trap. It's like I've sort of acknowledged, having been a glass hole, like done all of those things, that no, it's always dorky. It's just that you are so happy with it, you don't care what anybody
Right.
thinks.
Right.
And so
But wait till it gets into schools. At my
Yes.
kids' elementary schools now, they have laptops and smart projectors,
Right.
all the great stuff. And then imagine instead of sitting down watching a video, they'll say, "Okay, class, put on your visor."
Yep, we're going to
And then
Machu
everyone
Picchu.
will just be in a jungle, or they'll
Yeah.
be on some ancient ship, or they'll
Exactly.
be underwater, and then that's how you'll teach. And
Let's
you'll grow up.
experience history. Let's
Let's
not
connect
read
with our
about it.
sister city.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's join to the class in Japan and talk to them.
There
and
was
stuff.
a Microsoft video way back when that was that sort of sister city thing or shared classroom thing, but it was like a glass wall.
Yeah.
and you couldn't and holoportation is actually better than that.
It is.
because
Yeah.
now there's no wall.
No, they're in the room
You're in
with
the
you,
room, yeah.
and
In the
you
room
walk
with you.
around and interact.
Yeah.
And then imagine you've got a glove and you've got tactile feedback, whatever,
Yeah.
or an implant. Like you can go. I am super bullish. I don't know what the timelines are because
Yeah,
no one
me
can
neither.
predict that stuff.
No.
But I think they'll find a niche, and then I think it'll become more prevalent as the tech gets better. And we just need the apps. We
And
need the apps.
I found a way to prolong the battery life of HoloLens, and that's this. And I'm holding this little huge, battery charger for cell phones. This is the kind of thing that
Wow.
can charge
Thing's a brick.
an
How many
iPhone.
milliamps is that?
10,000.
I have a 25,000 one in
Yeah.
my bag.
Yeah, so you got a 10,000, 25,000 milliamp hour,
Yep.
and you put that in your pocket and a USB cable up to the HoloLens,
awesome.
and you can walk around all day.
Really?
Is that
Yeah.
healthy in your pocket?
Sure,
It's just a
heat.
battery.
It's just heat, right?
Hey, you put your cell phone in your pocket, and
That's true.
and then
Yeah.
there's RF. That's just
No, I'm big on the cell phone in the pocket, Bluetooth headset on, so you're getting brain cancer, testicular cancer at the same time. That's
no, that
awesome.
study came out of Australia now. That joke doesn't land anymore.
Yeah. Yes, that joke still lands just fine, but
Give it a week.
It doesn't mean
So
it's actually
I
true.
love how much nutritional value or lack thereof there's been in the show already. 40 minutes in, 41 minutes in, and we know what Kestrel is.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, why don't we talk about the talk that we just did was talking about how ASP.NET is hosted. And
right.
Kestrel is not the host. Kestrel is just the server. The app doesn't run on the server. The app includes a server so that it can accept sockets
Yep.
Right.
and requests and then run them through the pipipeline.
This is very different than IIS.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the host, and the IIS was both the host and the server.
Yes.
But they are separate things. And in .NET Core and ASP.NET Core, the host is very different to what it had been previously. And we just did an entire talk where we went through how .NET Core hosts .NET.exe, which is native code that then finds a core CLR on your hard drive in a relative location to where the .NET.exe was. It's not magic anymore. It's just like, oh, look next to me in the folder marked runtime.
Right.
Go in
Yeah.
there and look for something that I can boot. And then it says, well, what about my framework? What about system.blah, right?
Yep.
So we have this Microsoft.netcore.app, which is the name of the new, it's basically a mini .NET
shared
framework,
framework,
right?
yeah.
It's a mini .NET framework, but you can do side-by-side, you can do versioned. And what we did is we built our own shared framework. So instead of Microsoft Net Core app, we built
NDC
framework, Spring Preview, Wednesday build,
Cool.
CTP1. Right? Which turned out
It was too long.
aim for NuGet. And NuGet didn't like it, so we had to keep trimming like the tokens from it until it would let us
That's awesome.
use the semifinite. So we built our own framework that included .NET Core, like
Yep.
the .NET Core, and JSON.NET,
Autofac.
Autofac,
And MVC.
Serilog,
Yep.
and MVC,
Yeah.
right? A whole bunch of just random stuff we asked the
Great.
crowd. And we built a framework, and then we packaged it up, put it on disk in the right place, created a NuGet package that represented it, and then we created an app that used that framework.
Nice.
And it ran. And then we published the app, and the publish output didn't include the framework because it's assumed the framework will already be on the server,
Right.
right? That's what a framework is.
Yep.
And so the app output was like 2 DLLs.
Wow.
And then the framework was there. So this is totally unsanctioned, but it was more about just demonstrating how the mechanics work
Right.
of hosting. And these things are possible because of the way we design stuff. You just
And
think
so
about it.
things are more granular now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And does that make it easier? I mean, it's obviously more powerful, but does that make it easier or more challenging for developers?
So you don't have to worry about any of the stuff that
We've been struggling for this, but so we broke ASP.NET Core into a bunch of packages, right? We have about 50 repositories on GitHub. There's configuration, logging, there's DI,
Hosting,
there's MVC. There's a bunch of
Kestrel.
repositories. I think we built a bunch of Lego blocks that are very layered and well done, and we have a hard time trying to figure out how we mush things together.
what the instructions look like.
Yeah,
What's the
so-
booklet look like? you
Yeah.
know?
So we have a really nice framework, but I think we've struggled for the last few years trying to figure out, you have a layered framework, and some people want some things sometimes, but for the majority of cases, you kind of want the entire stack up front.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So we're trying to figure out, what we do in the long run for having all this on net, but not too much of it.
Right. And we have a set of
like-
primitives, right, that
Yeah.
we can use to express modules. We have NuGet packages.
Yep.
We have what we call meta packages, which are
packages.
packages that represent other packages. We
Okay.
have frameworks, which are represented by those TFMs that you see in the
project.
project.json file. And so we have these little primitives that we can pivot on. So, well, is this a TFM or is it a package? Is it a
Package,
meta
is it a framework?
package? Is it implied or do you have to express it? And we constantly churn and battle on that to find the right balance.
So right now you have to say everything.
Right.
It isn't bad, but it's in your face.
It's actually very notish too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what I like about that is very configuration as code. I know exactly what goes in. The whole thing, and I come from the IT side on this as well, right? Like IIS for most devs, magic.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
There will be a server
Yes.
and things will happen.
Will run,
right?
yeah.
And for me as the ops guy, it's like, I've always described IIS as a Swiss Army knife with all the blades out.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have to
That's
go
right.
through this ritual with tools and things to turn off the stuff we're not using.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've gone completely the other way and said, these are the only things that will exist, makes my job, on the InfoSec side way easier. Makes it tons easier to figure out what changed between this version and that version. Like, I know it's a lot of ceremony, but it's very clear. It's really declarative, and that kind of makes me happy because we've been doing too much voodoo
Yes.
for
And
too
that's,
long.
that's why Node was so popular, wasn't it? Because it was just pure and simple, and then the
Yes.
things you want to add, you add them as you need them.
packages.
Yeah, and the difference with Node, I think, was that Node didn't prescribe anything other than that core.
Yep.
Node.exe is 10 megabytes. You run it, and you get a socket and an HTTP server and a file I/O abstraction,
Console.
and nothing else.
and after that, it's up to you.
And then after that, and the JavaScript standard library, which has math.
Yeah. But then you also, now you start standing up templates of, okay,
Right.
well, I'm going to want this and this, and you start
But they
pulling those
didn't come
pieces
from
together.
Node. They came from the Node community.
And this is where, we also feared the framework just becoming a beast.
Right.
Right? And there were some times in the past where it was a beast. So I don't know how many pieces we need to be in. We know it needs to be more than one.
Yes.
But
And
I'm
less
sure there's a
than-
number that's too large.
Right
Yeah.
now, File New Project downloads 210 packages. Might be a little too
That's
much.
a lot.
Maybe too granular.
Yeah.
Did you get any feedback from the Linux community that was actually helpful?
So, yes, but I think in somewhat typical Linux fashion, we didn't get the same feedback from the whole Linux community. When we talked to companies that used Linux or use Linux, we would say, hey, we're thinking about doing it this way or this way. And one company would say, yeah, you should do it the first way. That sounds great. Lovely. And then you go to the second company, they go, oh, you should do it the second way. That's how we do it. And so I think what we had to land on was a happy medium. And
Yeah.
so, for example, we include libuv in Kestrel, effectively. It's a package
yeah.
dependency. It's in NuGet. We put libuv, we build it because libuv doesn't have an official binary distribution. It's just source code. And then other people package it up. And so we build it for Windows, for Mac, for various Linux distributions, and we put it in a NuGet package.
Yeah.
And then Kestrel depends on that, and then we distribute it that way. But, so it works everywhere just by default. Whereas some node, for example, actually statically links libuv into the node exe.
Right.
It's right in there.
But they're still including it. I mean, it's very much the
it's
same approach.
Still included.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes people would rather they install libuv as a system module on Linux and link it, whatever, file linking from one place to another, and then someone calls load module, file
Yeah.
name, and then the platform just figures it out. So for things like OpenSSL, which is what .NET Core uses for all of its crypto on Linux and Mac,
Right.
that's actually a prereq. And if you actually look at the Mac install instructions, it says go and install OpenSSL via Homebrew, then go and install .NET Core. And on Linux, on Debian anyway, the apt-get package for .NET Core depends on the OpenSSL
So
apt-get
some
package.
people like it one way, some people like it the
Right.
other.
And so, we include it, but if you don't want to do it that way, I think our Kestrel code will try
I think so too.
load module first. So if you have
I
it
think
installed
so.
as a system module at libuv1 SO something, whatever, it'll load that. And if that doesn't work, it'll load it from its local
Package.
copy.
All right.
Right? So we try and keep everyone happy as much
And
as we
everyone's
can.
happy, pretty much.
Oh, so far. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We were at
Are they all equally annoyed?
Yes.
Because you're never going to be exactly right for any one person.
We were at
really.
OSCON and we taught a workshop on ASP.NET Core, and there was one guy in the crowd who had Fedora.
Yes.
And he was like, I can't get to work. And we're like,
We don't
what is
support
that?
Fedora.
Oh, so okay, Fedora. That's next. And then there's some guy who's like, I have Gen 2 or Mint, and then
Mint.
we don't support Mint yet, I guess. And
Right. So, we started with the
CentOS.
distros
Yeah.
that support on Azure.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had
obviously.
another guy wanted Oracle Linux.
Yeah.
Oracle Linux.
Oracle
Yeah.
Linux, because they run Oracle and they pay for Oracle Linux support. So we have Red Hat, we have Ubuntu, we have CentOS, and FreeBSD was done by the community. And then we're working on Alpine. We're Fedora. But Mint probably works now.
Yeah, we have
Ubuntu 16 doesn't work yet. We're working on it. Because Ubuntu 16 is different to Ubuntu 14.
It's pretty crazy, actually.
It's crazy.
Dependencies are insane.
Yeah.
So I just heard that Azure and Apache are now working together.
Oh,
like
okay.
Apache runs in Azure. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, well, I knew there was like a partnership or something going on between Apache and Azure, but I don't know necessarily an implementation. I would presume at some point it would run.
I just think it's great that everybody's playing nice now.
Some guy found a bug saying, I want a module for Apache for ASP.NET Core. And we were like,
What?
Really?
What? Yeah. And he was like arguing. He was like, you know what? I want the module. And we were like, use mod proxy. And he was like, no, I want a thing to boot the process, watch it for me, manage it, kill it. And I was just like, wow.
That doesn't exist. There isn't a module out there for
Everything
Apache.
reverse proxies, no one launches the process.
There's no process launching module for Apache? Seriously?
Nope.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's pretty rare, actually.
Why would you do that? Yeah, that's just
Yeah, you just...
Well, they want
They
to
don't want to
forward.
use Nginx. They want to use Apache.
They
Yeah.
want Apache as the, answer the door, answer the socket,
Yeah.
and hand it off to you, and
Right.
there you go.
Interesting.
And I was like, wow, I've never heard that before.
okay.
It's just, I got to think on your side, like life was pretty easy when it was just Windows.
Oh
right?
my
Like,
gosh, it was so...
This is an explosion of complexity.
Yes, it was.
It was much easier.
Comparatively.
It was much easier.
But Windows is no cakewalk either, right? I mean,
Right.
Windows has this incredible feature, which is every program that ever ran on Windows ever will always forever run on Windows.
Yes.
We talked, I don't know if you were even a co-host then, but I talked to Jeff Richter years ago, who is a contractor on the Windows code.
I think he's an employee now.
He is. He
Yeah,
works
yeah.
on Service Fabric.
Yeah, so he was a contractor. He says, man, you wouldn't believe the if running this app, then do this branches in Windows. There
Wow,
are so many that have to special code for special apps.
Keep
that
it
are
working.
I think we
hacked
had
in
to
there.
talk with Dare Obasanjo about the same sort of thing, too.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. But
It is.
I mean, you talk about what are the true sort of genetics of Microsoft, this insanity almost around backward compatibility. If you built it, it will keep running.
It's
While
the same
also-
for...
while
It's
also
the
being
same
able
for
to
.NET
push
Framework.
updates.
It's the same for .NET Framework,
That's
actually.
that's what I was leading, right? It's
Yeah.
like when you think about that, you go, yeah, it does. But then we also have to be able to force push updates via Microsoft Update to running apps
Yep.
and have them keep working. And most of the time it works. I mean, it's fair to say most of the time it works. Sometimes we break stuff.
One day I woke up from sleeping and Jabber was down. And I was like, I didn't do it. I woke up.
I was asleep.
And I was asleep.
It wasn't
and
me.
it was nothing happened. And then Azure update hit. And then boom.
It was back.
And they were like, oops, we forgot to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh. Can you fix my application for me?
So I mean, that burden carries with it a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when we wrote code that runs in the .NET framework, we had all these arcane rules that were perfectly reasonable given what we just talked about, the fact that because it had to always work and support multiple versions of Windows at a time. But we couldn't do things like if a new API appears in the .NET framework, System Web couldn't just call it directly.
Right.
Because we have this thing called patch families.
Patch families.
Which means because you have to be able to patch System Web separately to other parts of the .NET framework.
Of course.
Otherwise, your patches would always be enormous.
Huge.
Yeah.
Right? And so...
Gigabyte patch every time.
Gigabyte patches
So
every
we had
time.
these rules.
So we had these rules, and so like System Web would have to detect, am I on Windows 7 or am I on Windows 10? Am I on .NET Framework 4.6.5 with this patch? Or
Right.
And then like late bind call into other methods in the framework.
It's like JavaScript.
It's like JavaScript.
Polyfill. You're like,
.NET.
window.jQuery? jQuery, yeah?
But if you ever tried to do that in .NET, it is not as simple as it is in JavaScript.
No.
Yeah,
And make it fast. And make it resilient to when changes happen. So that was challenging.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, what is the relationship to .NET Core to Azure? When I build an Azure, when I put a website up on Azure, I know it's running on some magic sauce that I don't really understand. But, it seems like the Azure team might be interested in using the core
So
because it's running on disparate hardware and stuff.
So
I don't know what the relationship
yeah, I mean,
is there.
so the Azure, Azure's a big beast, right? And it's
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
we were in the gallery yesterday, and you go like new, and then it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
You want do you want to machine learn today? I
yeah.
want to machine learn.
But I'm specifically talking about Azure websites.
You mean
Yeah.
Azure? Okay, so
yeah.
Azure websites run on IS, and they have a sandboxing thing in there that allows them to run multiple apps on the same machine safely. And they ultimately, you're always running in IIS. And so with ASP.NET Core, we use the module that we have, the ASP.NET Core module.
Right.
And that boots the process that runs your app, .NET.exe, or if you're running on full framework, it just runs your app.exe because it's just a console app, right? So it's nothing very magical there. So they really don't care. Like Azure just wants you to be able to run your app. And so they care enough that they've done work to ensure that .NET Core apps run, right? And they have special deployment scripts and all sort of stuff for it. But for running their own infrastructure, I haven't really heard anything specific.
I've heard some stuff.
You might have heard
they
some
want
stuff?
to port. Well, they want to port to Core.
What?
For
Well,
reasons.
why wouldn't they? Because
for
the
reasons.
performance is
It's better performance.
and-
Yeah,
Which bits they want to port to Core?
they actually run their stuff on ASP.NET
see.
full.
Like the portal itself?
Not the portal, but
the
the things that
services.
run
The sites.
the actual website's
I see.
engine,
Yeah.
the engine itself. Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I would hope to see.
yeah.
Because you've done so much work on.
It would be good. I mean, like first-party partners are always nice, right?
Yeah.
Having internal Microsoft partners is
So
good.
you haven't got that call from the GU yet?
No, but it's always a part.
Yeah.
We obviously try and support our Microsoft partners and
Sure.
other teams as much as we possibly can, obviously.
Like
right?
Bing is interested, right?
Bing is super
They
interesting.
care about using
Right.
ASP.NET Core.
Well,
Right.
and for us on the outside, every time we see another team use your
Yes.
stuff, we
Yeah.
know your stuff gets better.
It's better,
right?
yeah.
Dog fooding and all that sort of stuff, right?
WPF only became great
Yes.
after Studio 2010.
Yes.
Right? You guys kicked
Non-blurry
the
mode
snot.
equals true.
Yeah.
Remember that?
But it was hard.
It was hard.
You talk
very
about
hard.
one of the reasons Studio 10, going
Yeah,
back to
took
our
time.
earlier mention.
Well, so I was there. I was living that thing.
yeah.
I remember there was an email thread saying I got a headache because the editor
text was
was
blurry.
blurry.
Wow.
And people turned it off and turned the old one on, and that was like a huge thing.
Yeah.
'Cause it was like the
Disaster.
text isn't blurry enough, and it was like, oh my god, we have to go from scratch and rebuild this entire system, and that happened.
Yeah.
And it was like
And then Scott
amazing.
Goo did a blog post with a screenshot of
It
the
was amazing.
Vita editor and the Orcus editor,
Orcus,
Visual
yeah.
Studio 2008 editor, with the latest Visual Studio 2010 editor side by side, and said, "I challenge you to find the difference." After we fixed all the bugs,
Right.
that was.
I always call it blurry mode equals false. And it's just like, oh, put the flag.
Yeah.
masked 6 months of engineering work.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in terms of where IIS ends up in all of this.
IIS
Long
remains like the premier web
Windows
server
server.
for Windows.
Sure.
Right, and as you said before, it's the Swiss Army knife of being able
For
to
better
do-
or worse.
For better or worse, that can do anything. And
Yeah.
ARR is used in Azure, application request routing, which is an IIS module. It can run Java, it runs Ruby, it can run Node, it can run ASP.NET Core, it can run ASP Classic, run PHP.
We didn't bring up containers.
No,
We have not
it's
talked about
like
containers at all.
The reason people want the .NET Core stability is containers. Containers are the new hotness.
Yes.
They're like,
And
oh my
I
god.
don't even know if it's rational at this point.
It's not. It's just
I'm
like
totally
so.
with you.
there is a lot of
It's,
stuff.
of
that's
course,
pretty
it's rational,
compelling.
Yes.
but it's like candy.
But containers feel like this solution to a problem, a group of problems you're having trouble with, but it's not going to be the solution you expect.
But
in what way?
it enables so many things that you
It
didn't
is.
do
It
before.
is. I mean, I'm super bullish on containers as well. When you consider in the environments that I worked in the past, where I had was a consultant, we'd set up a very complex project, a couple of dozen people, and you'd use dependencies. You'd have systems you had to install, SDKs, and right? And then when you think about in a container model, where that all just gets encapsulated
Yes.
in an
In a
image.
So the
File.
class
You
of
can
issues
describe-
caused by
yeah.
the dev environment
Right.
being different from production environment,
Yep.
I think containers address that extremely well.
And VMs also addressed it, but they're just too slow
They're
and
heavy.
too
Yes.
big.
And
And
Sure. Everybody was carrying around a Delosaurus.
Exactly.
And remember the Azure Power Pack to try and automate
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff, generating those things? Yeah. Or you could hit yourself with a hammer because it wouldn't take as long. It didn't hurt as much.
Right.
So is there something special about ASP.NET Core other than that it's smaller and faster, that it plays well with containers?
When it comes to containers? No, not really. It's just
It
that it's
runs
smaller and faster.
cross-platform,
In fact,
and
yeah.
Windows didn't have containers until like last week. So
Right.
Well,
And-
and that's still, TP5, right?
Yep.
I don't
Still
know when we
preview, right?
actually. I'm going to presume in the Ignite time frame,
Probably
we
have
may
a-
see a full version of Server 2016. But we've done these shows, and folks are projecting.
Well, I think they've said Server
I see.
2016 will be separate from Nano. So Server 2016
Yes.
will release and Nano will stay in preview.
But there's a difference between the Nano server, which would run in a container,
Oh, totally.
versus
It is.
the Windows host environment
Correct.
for
Oh, yeah.
containers.
yes.
yeah.
Well, that's huge.
Yep.
So what do we say? I mean, usually I ask at this point, what's next for you? But I know exactly what's next for you. You're going back to work and getting into
Ship
working on
RTM.
all this.
RTM.
And then we're going to work on SignalR again.
Yes.
Oh, really? Cool.
SignalR.
Yes.
What's not done about SignalR?
It doesn't work on .NET Core. We haven't ported
So
it to
it
ASP.NET
works.
Core yet.
That's the big thing that's going to happen. When .NET Core and ASP.NET Core 1
Yep.
settle down, there's a lot of code to start working on.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to do that, and we're going to look at bringing back a whole bunch of other features in MVC and other parts of ASP.NET that we just haven't had time to do. We don't have
Right.
response caching yet, so we're going to go back and add that middleware.
Here you've been shuffling around on the foundations. You
Yep.
get to build a new house when you get the
Correct.
foundation
Oh, yeah.
settled.
Absolutely.
And I think one is diagnostics in the cloud.
Yes.
We want to tackle that one hard.
We want to
so
solve that problem. Make
Yeah.
it easier to run your app in Azure.
You deploy and, it's
what's
like,
wrong.
boom.
Right.
What do you do?
Right.
Where do you look?
Yeah,
First
well,
time.
Hockey App Insights, like that whole battle's pretty interesting, guys. Just mentioning, got a couple of emails from some unhappy customers going, do you know what they just did to us? No, that wasn't you guys.
Plead
It's not your
ignorance.
fault.
I have no idea.
You don't know
So-
anything.
What
We
is
bought some
this?
companies or something.
Yeah.
This
I
hockey
heard
thing
maybe.
you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll do some more shows around Hockey App, but I mean, the reality is, and I guess around the time we're putting this show out, pretty much, they're turning off App Insights. You got to use Hockey App, and the feature sets don't match. It's not a clean Venn diagram.
Oh, well.
Not your space. Now, you guys aren't Azure guys. You're web guys. Different show.
Well,
Sorry,
Azure's
didn't even
web.
bring it up.
So
Part of it.
So, guys, thank you. This has been a great conversation, and congratulations. It's really awesome.
It's been a ton of fun and a bit
you.
of pain.
It's been crazy.
That's
crazy
how
fun.
software should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Ups and downs. Ups. More ups.
You can't.
than
You,
downs.
you don't know why the ups are so good if they
Yeah.
don't have a few downs here and there.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Pwop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a